Hey everyone, Kevin P. McAuliffe here for Assimilate Inc. and I'm back again with another Scratch 9.1 tutorial, and in this lesson we're talking BurnIn. It's part one of a two-part look at BurnIn. We're not only going to talk about how to get in and add BurnIn to your work, but we're going to talk about what the global parameter does, how to add guides to your BurnIn, and what the flash parameter is, and how you're going to work with it. Alright, let's keep the intro short, let's just get into Scratch, and let's get started. Alright, and as you can see, we are in Scratch. Let's head on over to the render module, and before we get rolling, what I want to do is navigate over to my output templates, and I'm going to just apply our Avid Dailies workflow. Now the reason I want to apply this particular output tree is that I want to point out that when you're working with BurnIn, you don't necessarily need to have all of your BurnIn associated with a single node. You'll notice that in this tree here, we have BurnIn that's going to travel through both our 1080p DNx HD36 output tree or output branch, as well as going down our 720p output branch. Now, if you take a look right here, we have an output node called watermark. So we have one that's BurnIn. If I click on that to preview it, you'll see this is where we get all of our metadata information like the source file, the source name, the source's timecode, an audio file, sound roll, and the audio timecode. Now what's important to keep in mind is that if you enter any of this metadata information and the clip doesn't have that metadata, it's just going to be included as blank. So keep that in mind. Alright, so let's now head back to the render module. Let's jump down to this BurnIn node right here. I'm simply going to click on it again, and you'll now see we have our property of Assimilate Inc. right here. Now I'm going to get in and show you how we can get in and add this in just a second. What's also very cool is you'll see because this particular node is being added downstream from the other BurnIn node, we can actually see that BurnIn information at the top and at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so let's head back to our render module. Let's navigate up here. Let's just delete that tree. I'm going to come back to the main timeline and we're going to add a new BurnIn node. Now keep in mind, you'll see right now what's happening is that every time, and I'm just going to add a couple more BurnIn nodes here just to show you what's happening here. You'll see that every time a node is added, how it's named is it's named by the timeline that it's coming from and the node that it is. So it's coming from timeline and it's a BurnIn node. So this node is now called burnin1.burnin, or pardon me, timeline1.burnin. Of course, we added another BurnIn node after that. So you'll see .burnin.burnin, etc., down the line. Now, we're all about organization. If you know anything about me, I'm all about organization. So all we want to do is we just simply want to call this node BurnIn. Alright, and once we click anywhere else, you'll see that node is immediately renamed, and we're now set to go and add information in. Now, a couple ways that we can do this. One way, I'm not going to say it's the proper way and the non-proper way. Well, one way to do this, and what I like to say is the starting way to do this, is to come up to the node and click on the little play icon. This will bring us over here to the color effects module. You'll notice the difference this time is that instead of showing us the name of the clip, the type of media, so for example, if this was a red clip or an RE clip, you'll notice over here we have BurnIn in the upper left-hand corner because we are getting in and manipulating the BurnIn for this clip. Alright, now we can get in, add information in here, but let's just say hypothetically I had spelt something wrong in one of our BurnIn layers. What we have the ability to do from the render module with the BurnIn node selected is to come in and get access to those parameters from in here as well. So if we need to make any changes, we don't need to be constantly jumping back and forth between modules to make those changes. Alright, so let's head back into our BurnIn node and let's just start adding some metadata information. Now we're going to start at the top here, and I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to add a few different pieces of metadata information to the same layer, and then I'm going to show you how this will work going through multiple layers. Alright, so starting with our first layer, and you'll see that I know this is the first layer because it's called 1. I don't have the ability to create a new one because right now this is the only layer that I have. And what we're going to do is we're going to start out with the source's name. As soon as I punch source name in as the metadata information, you'll see hashtag sname, it immediately appears on the screen. Now we do have the ability to get in and manipulate this piece of burn-in depending on what we wanted to do. For example, if I wanted a different piece of text, we could come in, select a new piece of text. I always like sticking with boring regular fonts like Arial, like Helvetica. They're great fonts to use because they're easy to read. If you need to get in and make adjustments to the size of your burn-in, if you want to adjust its position, X and Y, the width, you'll see that we can get in and also adjust the justification here as well as spacing, opacity, and line width. Now you also have the ability to get in and to add an edge around this as well. You'll see I can add it like such, and what I'm going to do is just place that under just so that it stands out from the background just a little bit. Now I'm going to keep this justified on the left hand side, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add, let's add 4 spaces in here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the source time code. So let's just head back to our insert metadata information, and let's just come here to sources time code. Now you're going to notice that what happens is as I start adding this metadata information, our hashtag information, we get all the information we need, but to be honest, I don't really know what any of this actually represents. What does that timecode value represent? Does it represent the source's timecode? Because when this clip is sent out, it's rendered out and it's sent out to the editor to work with, they're going to have no idea what any of this is. So what we have the ability to do, and I'm just going to remove my source's timecode here, is we can get in and add non-hashtag information, so non-metadata specific information into the text window as well. So for example, I know that this is the source's name. Okay, so if I punch in source's name, you'll see it immediately appears as the burn-in with the dash, but of course our hashtag information will still call up the metadata information tagged with this clip. Now if at any point, instead of getting in and adding multiple pieces of metadata to the same line, we want to get in and start adding new lines, we can simply say new. Now let's come in, and what we're going to do is we're going to go with sources timecode. Okay. Now again, you can be as specific, as non-specific as you want to be. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put this layer's value back at 0, its Y value back at 0. Why? Because we're going to punch in that timecode information with our hashtag. Let's go to sources timecode. And now what I'm going to do is simply center that information. Okay, so you see how this works. I can then add another layer. We can right justify it. We can then place one at the bottom, left justify, center justify, right justify, and you see how this is going to work. It's actually fairly straightforward to get in and start adding the metadata information you need to send through with your dailies. Now, I want to draw your attention to some other parameters that we have access to. You'll notice that we have a global positioning change, meaning that once you get everything where it is, if you need to get in and adjust all of their positions, so for example, if all this information is too close to the top of the screen, I can simply just lower it down altogether, assuming that my metadata information or my burn-in information was all associated on the same line. Because remember, if I had burn-in information at the bottom, it would shift down and shift up with that Y value as I adjust it. Okay, let's put this back to 0 here. Let's jump into guides. Obviously, very important if you're going to be shooting in, let's just say, 8K full, and you know that you're going to be creating something for a scope DCP. What you have the ability to do is to come in and actually enable guides right here from within the burn-in window, as well as the ability to come in and add blanking. So this is super helpful to have all of this ability right here from within the burn-in parameter. We even have the ability to get in and add outlines as well to see exactly where that frame is going to appear. And if we need to make adjustments to the action or text safe areas, we can do that right over here. Now, one thing that's important for me to point out is that if you actually navigate over and you accidentally or on purpose select the same guide preset, it will actually reset the blanking. Because what I wanted to show you is just that you can get in and adjust the bottom blanking, in this case, to be whatever value you want it to be. And obviously the same works for the other values as well. So for example, if we came in and set that to be scope, we made sure we had blanking turned on. Let's say we wanted the bottom at 200. I could just punch in 200, and of course our matting or our blanking will be adjusted to that value. All right, I'm just going to set things back the way they were, make sure blanking was turned on like such. And let's talk about the last parameter, because I thought this was a very cool one. I didn't quite understand it when I first started getting in and getting myself up to speed with Daily's workflows, because it's simply called flash. And you'll see it says flash frames, flash guides. So what does that mean? Does that mean that this information is going to be popping on and off the screen, at certain points? No. What this actually does is it's a timer that will let you turn on your burn-in information for a very specific amount of time off the top of the clip, and then have it appear again at the end of the clip. So for example, let's just say I punch in a value of 90 off the top, and we'll punch in 90 at the end as well. All right. Now you'll notice that as I click through, what's going to happen here is that that timecode information is actually going to disappear as soon as I turn on flash frames. Now I'm not going to turn on guides because the concept works exactly the same. You'll notice as soon as I turn flash frames on, everything disappears. But if I jump back towards the beginning of our clip, you'll notice all the information reappears again. So once we hit that 90th frame, you'll see there it goes. And then once we jump back, it will reappear once again. So all of these tools inside of the burn-in node are really going to give you, and more specifically the editor down the chain, all of the information they're going to need in their dailies so that they can get the work done that they need as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Now, one last thing that I do want to mention, I'm just going to turn off flash frames. I'm going to head to text here. Let's get in, let's add a new layer. We're going to position that layer almost right dead in the middle of the screen, and we're going to type in property of KPM ink. And you'll see that we can now take this, we can increase its size as big as we need it to be. We can then, let's just reposition it so it is centered in the middle of the screen. We'll just jump down a little bit, perfect. And its opacity is a little bit bright. Let's set that down to 40%. And now you'll see that much like in our intro, we now have our watermark set dead on the screen, so there's no way that anybody can steal this footage without us knowing about it. All right, now I think that that is a good place to leave off. Coming up in part 2 of this lesson, I want to talk about how we're going to get in and create burn-in presets so that you have access to them lightning quick. And then we're going to move on and I'm going to show you how we can then get in and apply this burn-in information to external monitors, whether it's SDI or in my case, even just coming out of the HDMI out of the back of my Mac Pro trash can so that we can get a visual representation of what this looks like on an external broadcast monitor. All right, that brings us to the end of our lesson. Now, I want to remind you we were working in Scratch 9.1, and if you need more information about this release, you can check out the link you see on the screen right now, and don't worry, we've included it in the notes below this tutorial so you can get there lightning fast. And don't forget, for everything Scratch and Assimilate related, you can check us out on the web at www.assimilateinc.com. This has been Kevin P. McAuliffe. Thanks a lot for watching.